Rain drummed on the roof of Detective Ezra Onyeko's police car as he pulled up to a shabby apartment building on the outskirts of Florence. The gray October Tuesday morning seemed particularly bleak. Through the windshield, he could see the flashing blue lights of patrol cars and the yellow tape fencing off the crime scene. Ezra sighed, adjusted his tie, and walked out into the rain. 36 years of life and 12 years on the force had not dulled his sense of anxiety about facing death. "Detective Onyeko," the patrolman nodded at the entrance. "Third floor, apartment 312. Ezra climbed the shabby stairs. The smell of mold mingled with something metallic and heavy, the smell of blood. He stopped at the open door where Corey's medical examiner was already bent over the body. "What do we have, doctor?" "Young female, approximately 24 years old. Death is believed to have occurred between midnight and 3 a.m. Corey pointed to the body lying face down. "Multiple trauma, especially to the lower body. Brutal sexual assault." Ezra put on latex gloves and crouched down next to the body. The girl's dark skin contrasted with the beige carpet soaked with blood. Her arms were twisted at an unnatural angle, as if she was trying to defend herself. Name? Nzinga Odom, according to the paperwork. Preliminary cause of death is internal bleeding due to trauma. Ezra slowly walked around the apartment. The one-room space was small but well-maintained. There were posters of music bands on the walls and an old laptop on the desk. The kitchenette was neat, with a few packs of instant noodles in the cupboard. "No signs of forced entry," Ezra noted, examining the door and windows. She knew her killer. In the sleeping nook, he found clothes strewn about. Bright, shiny outfits. Looked like performance outfits. "She worked at the Purple Room," one of the officers said. "It's a strip club 2 blocks from here." Ezra nodded and continued looking around. In the bathroom, he found several pill bottles, the usual painkillers, birth control pills. In the trash can, a used syringe. "Check for drugs," he said to the expert. "Although I don't see any signs of drug use. The apartment's too neat." By the bed, Ezra noticed an expensive smartphone of the latest model, too luxurious for a girl living in such an apartment. "Pack the phone. We need to check contacts and messages." While the forensics team worked, the detective continued to study the victim's life through things. On the fridge, magnets from different cities: New York, LA, Atlanta. Dreams of the big world? On the desk are envelopes with bill payments, all paid on time. In a small dresser next to the bed, he found a jewelry box. Most were cheap costume jewelry, but among them stood out a dainty gold bracelet engraved, "Forever yours, P." Ezra carefully packed it in an evidence bag. "Detective, there's someone here to talk to you," the officer called out from the stairwell. Standing at the entrance to the building was a young woman with eyes red from crying. Thin, with short dreadlocks dyed purple. "I'm Lamia Duba," she introduced herself. "I was told that Nzinga—" "Did you know her?" Ezra asked softly. "We worked together." Lamia wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to keep warm. "And we were friends. I can't believe—" Ezra took the girl to his car to talk away from prying eyes and the rain. "Tell me about Nzinga," he asked, turning on the recorder. "We met 2 years ago at the Purple Room. I was already working there and she had just arrived. Zin was special, you know? Smart, talented. She wasn't gonna dance her whole life. She was saving up for music school. She could sing, she could write songs. How long ago was the last time you saw her?" "The night before last at work. She was kind of distracted, nervous. Said she wasn't feeling well and left early. Did she have enemies? Someone who might have wished her harm?" Lamia shook her head. "Everyone liked her, but—" The girl hesitated. "But—" She'd been seeing some man lately. Never talked about him, just said he was special. I think he was married or something. Zin started wearing expensive things she couldn't afford on our earnings. Ezra wrote down the information. Classic situation. Young dancer and wealthy patron. Did she use drugs? No, definitely not, Lamia answered confidently. She didn't even drink much. She said it was bad for her voice, and her voice was her future. Back in the apartment, Ezra examined the desk more carefully. In a drawer, he found a folder of documents: birth certificate, insurance, medical records. Among the papers was a receipt from the Hope Medical Clinic, dated last week. "We should check out that clinic," he muttered as he photographed the document. By then, the body had already been packed for transportation to the morgue. Ezra took another look at the crime scene. Something was bothering him. The apartment looked too neat for a place where a brutal murder had taken place. It was almost as if the attacker knew what he was doing, or, "Check the bathroom again," he asked the CSI. "Look for signs of scrubbing, bleach, anything. I think the killer was trying to cover his tracks." The detective went back to the desk and turned on the victim's laptop. The password would have to go to tech. Just in case, he examined the car itself, noting the stickers, band logos, feminist slogans, a sticker for the Hope Clinic. Anything health-related? The CSI called out to him from the bedroom. "Detective, take a look." Ezra came over. The specialist pointed to the almost imperceptible dark stains on the carpet beside the bed. "Looks like the murder happened here and the body was dragged into the living room. Someone was trying to clean up the blood." "So not an impulsive crime," Ezra concluded. The attacker was trying to create a different picture of the incident. He went through the papers in his desk once more and came across a small day planner. Leafing through it, he noted the regular entries P 21 hours or P meeting. The last such entry had been made 2 days before his death. "Our dancer had a regular customer," he muttered. Checking the closet, Ezra found several expensive dresses with the tags of famous brands. In the pocket of one of them was a check from La Perla restaurant for more than a month's rent for this apartment. "Corey, check the fingernails for DNA." He turned to the medical examiner. She could have scratched her attacker. When the basic work at the crime scene was complete, Ezra went to the Hope Clinic. The small building with green shutters was located in the central part of town. A sign on the door read, "Specialty Clinic." "What can I do for you?" the nurse at the front desk asked. Ezra showed his badge. "Detective Onyeko, Florence PD. I'm investigating the death of Nzinga Odom. We have information that she visited your clinic last week." The nurse frowned and looked at the computer. "Yes, she was here. But I can't release patient information without a warrant." "I understand," Ezra nodded. "I'll get a warrant, but first, I'd like to know what your clinic's specialty is." "We specialize in infectious diseases and their prevention," the woman answered cautiously, "including HIV and other STDs. Ezra thanked her and left. On the way to the station, he pondered the information he had received. A young dancer with a rich lover, a visit to a specialized clinic, a brutal murder. A disturbing picture was forming. Back at the station, Ezra laid out the crime scene photos and began to compile his report. Lieutenant Brody came into his office. "How's it going, Onyeko?" "We've got some leads, sir. Victim's a 24-year-old strip club dancer. Maybe she had a wealthy patron. She recently visited an STD clinic. Apparently the killer knew what he was doing and was trying to cover his tracks." The lieutenant nodded. "Keep me posted. If you need additional resources, let me know." In the evening, Ezra visited the Purple Room. The club hadn't opened yet, but the staff was already getting ready for business. The manager, who introduced himself as River Cole, escorted the detective into the staff room. "Nzinga was one of our best dancers," he said, tapping his fingers nervously on the table. "The clients adored her." "Any special clients?" River shrugged. "Maybe. I don't follow the girls' personal lives as long as it doesn't interfere with work, but..." He hesitated. "But..." "A couple times, a man in an expensive car picked her up, waiting in the parking lot. I caught a glimpse of him. Middle-aged, well-dressed, like some kind of boss or businessman." Ezra wrote down the information. "When was the last time you saw Nzinga?" "Day before yesterday. She left early, said she wasn't feeling well. She seemed upset." The detective returned to the station late last night. There was a folder of preliminary results waiting on his desk. He opened it and started looking through the documents. The victim's phone was password protected. The techs were still working on it. There were traces of bleach on the carpet, confirming the theory of evidence destruction. There were traces of skin under Nzinga's fingernails. Samples are being sent for DNA testing. Last in the folder was a photocopy of a small piece of paper found in the victim's jeans pocket. Official Hope Clinic letterhead with Nzinga's name and the date a week old. At the bottom, in bold letters, it read, "HIV test result, positive." Ezra leaned back in his chair, pondering the new information. Things were taking an even darker turn. The morning at the Florence police station started for Detective Ezra Onyeko with a cup of strong coffee and a stack of documents on the Nzinga Odom case. Yesterday's discovery, a positive HIV test, had made him reconsider possible motives for the murder. The phone rang. It was the lab technician from the technical department. "Detective Onyeko? We've hacked into the victim's cell phone. Can you come down here?" Ezra went down to the lower floor where the technician had already prepared a report and an unlocked smartphone. "Nice phone," Technician Farrell remarked. "The latest model, worth at least $1,000. Usually these are not affordable for dancers from second-rate clubs. What do you got?" Most of the talk is the usual: girlfriends, work, food delivery. But there's something interesting. Farrell opened a secure messaging app. A separate chat room with a contact labeled simply with the letter P. Messages deleted automatically 24 hours after being read, but some remained. Ezra picked up his phone and looked through the dialogue. Short messages about meetings, times, and places. Occasional compliments, hints of intimacy, discussion of gifts. Nothing specific, no names or addresses, just an initial. Last conversation between them? 4 days ago. She wrote, "We need to talk urgently. It's important." The reply, "Not now, busy with a case." Her, "It's about health. Yours too." Then silence. Ezra's thinking, "Can you track down who the number belongs to?" "I already tried. It's a disposable number, registered to a fake person, but the geolocation is interesting." Farrell opened the map. Most of the messages were sent from the county courthouse. County courthouse? Ezra raised an eyebrow. "Yeah. I also checked the browser's search history. Nzinga had searched a lot in the last few days for information about HIV, the rules for disclosing status to a partner, the legal consequences of hiding a diagnosis." Ezra thanked Farrell and, taking the phone as evidence, returned to his office. He opened the database of county court employees. Which one of them could have been that P? Looking through the names, he settled on one: Judge Pearson Tambo, P. Tambo. 49 years old, honorable judge, married, 2 children. Ezra remembered the engraving on his bracelet. "Forever yours, P." It was a serious charge, a county judge's affair with a dancer who was now dead. Ezra decided to proceed cautiously. He called the judge's office and made an appointment without revealing the real reason. The courthouse rose in the center of Florence, a stately red brick structure. Ezra walked up the wide steps, contemplating how to frame the conversation. He was met at the entrance to the judge's office by an assistant, a lean, middle-aged man with a neatly trimmed beard. "Detective Onyeko? My name is Leon Mwangi. I am an assistant to Justice Tambo," he said, extending his hand. "The judge is expecting you." The judge's office was spacious and elegant. Behind a massive wooden desk sat a tall man with noble gray hair on his temples and shrewd eyes. He stood up, greeting the detective. "Detective Onyeko, a pleasure to meet you. What can I do for the police?" "Thank you for your time, Your Honor. I am investigating the murder of a young woman in Nzinga Odom." The judge's face remained impassive. "What does this have to do with me?" "A few things have come up in the course of the investigation that I would like to clarify." Ezra pulled out a photograph of Nzinga. "Do you know this girl?" Judge Tambo looked at the photo and shook his head. "I don't recall. Who is she?" "A dancer at the Purple Room Club. She was murdered 3 days ago." "I'm sorry, but I don't frequent that kind of establishment." Ezra noticed that Leon, who was standing by the door, tensed. "That's odd," the detective continued, "because we have evidence of your acquaintance. For example, this bracelet." He showed a photograph of an engraved piece of jewelry. The judge turned slightly pale, but kept his composure. "A lot of men can have the initial P, detective. That's not evidence." "What about the messages?" Ezra pulled a printout from Nzinga's cell phone. "Geolocation shows they were sent from this building." "There are a lot of people working at the courthouse," the judge retorted. "And I still don't understand why you came to me." At that moment, Leon stepped forward. "Your Honor, you have a hearing in 15 minutes. The judge nodded and stood up. "I apologize, detective, but I have to go. If you have specific charges, please address them through my attorney. Otherwise, I consider this conversation concluded." Ezra realized it was pointless to press any further. Without hard evidence, the judge could easily dismiss all charges. Of course, Your Honor. Thank you for your time. He turned to Leon at the door. Mr. Mwangi, I'd like to talk to you too. Perhaps after the hearing? Leon looked worried. I am very busy today. How about tomorrow? It's about the murder, Mr. Mwangi. I'll be waiting for you at the cafe opposite the courthouse in 2 hours. After leaving the courthouse, Ezra went to Hope Clinic. This time, he had a warrant for Nzinga's medical records. The nurse he had spoken to earlier reluctantly led him to the head of the clinic, Dr. Pritchett. I understand your interest, Detective, but we have a duty of confidentiality, the doctor began. This is a homicide, Doctor. I have a warrant. Pritchett sighed and opened a file on his computer. Nzinga Odom has been to see us twice. The first time was 2 weeks ago, a routine checkup, including an HIV test. The second time was a week ago when we gave her the results. They came back positive. How did she react? Like most people, shock, denial, anger. We gave her counseling, told her about the treatment. She asked about how long ago she might have been infected and how to tell her partner. Did she mention her partner's name? No. But she was very concerned about the consequences. She was especially concerned about whether she could be legally prosecuted if she had already infected someone. Ezra wrote down the information. Could she have known who she'd been infected by? It was hard to say. According to her, she'd only had one steady partner in recent months. Doctor, if a person finds out they have HIV, how quickly do they usually get tested? Usually as soon as they know they're exposed. Standard tests take a few days to show results. Leaving the clinic, Ezra walked into a cafe across the street from the courthouse. The time for the meeting with Leon Mwangi was approaching, but the associate judge still hadn't shown up. The detective called the court reception and learned that Mr. Mwangi had left on personal business immediately after the meeting. This made Ezra wary. He decided to dig deeper and headed back to the station where he requested for the financial reports of both Nzinga and Justice Tambo. The report on Nzinga came quickly. In addition to her regular income from her work at the club, she had received regular transfers from an anonymous account, $3,000 each month for the past year. The last transfer was made a week before her death. Getting the judge's financial details was more difficult, but by evening Ezra had gotten them too. The judge lived large, expensive house, cars, vacations. Most of his spending matched his official income, but there were some oddities. For example, monthly cash withdrawals that coincided with Nzinga's transfers. Ezra decided to follow up on another lead. He called the lab that analyzed the DNA traces from under the victim's fingernails. We have a partial match, the lab technician reported, but full confirmation requires a comparison with the suspect's sample. Do you have a name on the partial match? No, but it's definitely a male, African American, approximately 40 to 50 years old. Ezra returned to his desk and began to map out the next steps. The picture of the crime was becoming clearer and clearer, but there was still a crucial piece of evidence missing. At that moment, his cell phone rang. The number was not recognized. Detective Onyeko. Detective, I want to talk about Nzinga, came a strained male voice. But not over the phone. Meet me at Riverview Park in an hour at the fountain. Who's that? Just come alone. The call cut off. Ezra hesitated. It could have been a trap, but it could also be a break in the case. He checked his weapon, informed his co-worker of the suspicious call, and headed for the park. Riverview was quiet on this weekday evening. Ezra approached the fountain cautiously, keeping his hand at his holster. A man emerged from the shadows of the trees. It was Leon Mwangi. Mr. Mwangi. Ezra relaxed, but only slightly. You missed our meeting. I couldn't talk there. Leon looked around nervously. There were too many eyes and ears. What did you want to talk about? About the judge and Nzinga. They've been seeing each other, Leon said quickly. For over a year now. I knew. Covered for them. Arranging meetings. Booking hotel rooms. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm afraid the judge might be accused of something he didn't do. He didn't kill her. He loved Nzinga despite their age and status. If he loved her, why did he deny knowing her? Because of reputation, of course. Leon shrugged. He's a judge, a respected man. A secret relationship with a dancer could have ruined his career, his family, his life. What do you know about her HIV status? Leon shuddered. I don't know anything about it. Ezra watched his interlocutor's reaction carefully. Strange, because Judge Tambo visited the clinic yesterday for an anonymous HIV test. The result came back positive. The information was a bluff, but Leon's reaction confirmed Ezra's suspicions. The assistant judge turned pale and grabbed the bench. So you knew about Nzinga's diagnosis? Leon lowered his head. She called the judge a week ago, hysterical. Said she was HIV positive, that she could have infected him. The judge was shocked. He immediately made an appointment for a test, but the results are not back yet. Where was Judge Tambo the night of the murder? At home with his family. His alibi is airtight. Ezra pretended to take notes. Your confession doesn't clear the judge, Mr. Mwangi. We have evidence of their connection and motive, anger over possible contamination. No, you don't understand. Leon raised his voice. The judge would never. In that case, we'll need a sample of his DNA to compare with the traces found on the victim's body. DNA? Leon suddenly became very attentive. What kind of marks? The skin under her fingernails. She struggled with her attacker, Mr. Mwangi. She left her mark. Leon looked at the detective with widened eyes. I have to go. The judge didn't know anything. Remember this. He quickly withdrew, leaving Ezra with more questions. Leon's behavior was becoming increasingly suspicious. Was he protecting the judge or himself? Back at the station, the detective decided to check one more detail. He requested the CCTV footage around Nzinga's house from the night of the murder. An hour later, he got a response. A camera on a neighboring building recorded a black sedan parked outside the victim's house between 11 p.m. and 2 in the morning. The license plate was partially visible, but technicians had managed to recover the first 3 digits. Ezra ran the partial license plate through the database and got a list of 20 cars. One of them was registered to Leon Mwangi. His computer received a new notification, a report from the bank with details of Judge Tambo's financial transactions. In addition to the transfers to Nzinga, it revealed an interesting fact. 2 days before the murder, the judge withdrew a large sum of cash, $10,000. The money appeared nowhere in his regular expenses. Ezra leaned back in his chair, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Judge Tambo had a secret relationship with Nzinga Odom. She found out about her HIV status and informed him. The judge may have realized he was also infected. He then withdrew a large sum of cash, and 2 days later, Nzinga was dead, and a car similar to Leon Mwangi's was parked outside her house. Was this payment for the murder, or was the money meant for something else? Ezra dialed the lab's number. I need to compare DNA samples right away. You still have the samples from the crime scene, right? Yes, detective. Who are we comparing them to? I don't know yet, but be ready. He hung up the phone and opened a search engine on his computer. The next step was to get a search warrant for Leon Mwangi's house and car, as well as a sample of his DNA. But that required probable cause. Ezra drafted a request, listing all the circumstantial evidence, connection to the case through Judge Tambo, lying about his whereabouts, a car that looked like it had been caught on cameras, strange behavior at the mention of DNA. The judge reviewing the request signed the warrant by morning. Tomorrow, Ezra planned to pay Leon Mwangi a visit and possibly solve Nzinga Odom's murder. It was a chilly morning in Florence. Detective Ezra Onyeko sat in his office with photos, reports, and documents on the Nzinga Odom case spread out on his desk. It was time to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. On a large blackboard, he began to reconstruct the chronology of the victim's last day. According to witness testimony and CCTV footage, Nzinga spent the morning of her last day at the Hope Clinic where she received the results of her HIV test. The nurse recalled that the girl looked depressed and confused and had a long conversation with the doctor about how to inform her partner of her status. After the clinic, Nzinga went home where she spent several hours. A camera at a nearby store recorded her leaving the house around 2 p.m. and heading towards the mall. Mall footage showed her at a pharmacy where she purchased several packs of sedatives. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a mobile bank camera caught Nzinga withdrawing money from her account. The full amount available, just over $2,000. It looked like she was preparing for something serious. At 5:30, she arrived at the Purple Room Club for her evening shift. But according to Lamia and other co-workers, she looked distracted and nervous. At 8 o'clock, she left abruptly, telling the manager that she wasn't feeling well. A camera at an intersection near the club recorded Nzinga getting into a cab. Ezra traced that cab's route to a residential neighborhood near the county courthouse. The driver confirmed that he dropped the girl off near a small restaurant. Here, the records were cut off for several hours. Nzinga's next appearance was recorded by a gas station camera 10 blocks from her home at 11:30 in the evening. She looked upset. Her clothes were in disarray. The last footage from the camera of the store across the street from her house showed Nzinga returning home at about midnight. 15 minutes later, a black sedan that looked like Leon Mwanga's car pulled up to the house. A man who looked like Leon entered the building and did not leave until 3 hours later. Ezra circled this last entry in red marker. According to the coroner's report, death occurred between midnight and 3 in the morning. It all fit. The detective picked up the phone and called Judge Tambo's office. "Can I speak to Leon Mwangi?" "Mr. Mwangi didn't show up today," the secretary answered. "He called and said he was sick. An interesting coincidence." Ezra dialed a team and went to Leon Mwangi's address with a search warrant. The associate judge's house was in a quiet suburb, modest but well kept. No one answered the door, and Ezra signaled for the team to enter. Inside was clean and neat, nothing to indicate the owner's hasty departure. The officers dispersed to their rooms, methodically exploring every corner. Ezra went to the garage where the same black sedan was parked. He turned on a flashlight and began to scrutinize the interior. "Detective," the CSI called out from the trunk. "There's something here." Under the trunk liner, they found a bag of bloody clothes, dark pants, and a shirt stained with brown stains. "Looks like blood," the CSI said. "Let's get it analyzed." At the house, another officer discovered a cache under the floorboards in the study. There was $10,000 in cash, exactly the amount Judge Tambo had withdrawn 2 days before the murder. "Look for any documents related to the judge or Nzinga," Ezra ordered, "and check the computer." In a desk drawer, they found pictures of Nzinga and Judge Tambo in various places: a restaurant, a beach, a hotel room. Some of the pictures showed them holding hands. Others showed them hugging. What was particularly strange was the fact that the photos seemed to have been taken surreptitiously, as if someone was watching the couple. "He was watching them," Ezra muttered. "Why?" In the bedroom, the officer found a day planner with neat entries. On the page corresponding to the day of the murder was an entry: "Nzinga, midnight, last chance." Ezra's phone rang. "It was Lete Onyeko. We have information on Mwangi's whereabouts. His credit card was used half an hour ago at the roadside motel on the way out of town." Ezra assembled a team, and they headed towards the motel. The plan was simple: a quick grab without making too much noise. No one knew if the suspect was armed or how dangerous he was. The motel was a row of small houses along the highway. The receptionist confirmed that a man who looked like Leon had rented room number 7 early that morning. The officers took up positions and Ezra knocked on the door. "Leon Mwangi, Florence Police! Open the door!" Silence. Then the sound of breaking glass. Ezra signaled, and the officers broke down the door. No one was inside, but the broken bathroom window showed an escape route. They saw Leon running across the field behind the motel. 2 officers gave chase, and Ezra drove around the building in a car to intercept the fugitive from the other side. 10 minutes later, Leon was captured. He didn't resist, but he looked exhausted and scared. Ezra snapped the handcuffs on his wrists and read him his rights. "It's over, Leon. We found clothes in your car and money in the house. We have enough evidence to link you to the murder of Nzinga Odom." Leon lowered his head. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right," Ezra nodded. "But all the evidence is against you. The DNA under the victim's fingernails, the security cameras, the financial trail. You were at her house the night of the murder, and we both know what happened." At the station, Leon was placed in an interview room. The lawyer, a young woman with a serious face, arrived half an hour later. After a brief conference in private, she informed him that her client was willing to talk, but wanted a plea bargain. No deal. The prosecutor, who was present during the interview, cut her off. "We have enough evidence for a first-degree murder charge." Ezra turned on the tape recorder and began the questioning. "Mr. Mwangi, tell us what happened the night Nzinga Odom died." Leon licked his lips nervously. "I didn't intend to kill her. I just wanted to talk." "About what?" "About Judge Tambo. I worked for him for 8 years. 8 years of loyal service." Leon raised his voice. I knew about his affair with that girl, covered for them, arranged meetings, all for him. And what changed? She called him a week ago, told him she was HIV positive, that she'd probably given it to him. The judge was shocked. He got tested, but he hadn't gotten the results yet. And then she started making threats. Threaten him with what? Said she was going to tell his wife. She'd destroy his career, his family, his reputation. She demanded hush money, $50,000, or she'd spill everything. The judge took $10,000 as a deposit, hoping to calm her down, buy her some time. He gave me the money to give to her. And that's why you went to her that night? Leon nodded. I wanted to convince her not to do it. Judge Tambo didn't deserve that. He's a good man, a fair judge. And she was nothing, a common dancer who used him. What happened at the apartment? We had a fight. She was adamant, said terrible things about the judge, said she'd go to his wife tomorrow. I lost control, grabbed her, started shaking her, screaming. She struggled, clawed at me. Then she hit me, and Leon stopped talking, his head down. You killed her, Ezra finished for him. It was an accident. I pushed her, and she fell and hit her head on the edge of the table. By the time I realized she wasn't breathing, it was too late. And the signs of sexual assault? Was that an accident too? Leon looked up with frightened eyes. No, I didn't touch her like that. I'm not a pervert. The medical examiner found clear signs of sexual assault, Leon. An assault that occurred shortly before her death. I swear it wasn't me. Leon looked genuinely shocked. Maybe she was with someone before me, or... He stopped talking, as if realizing something. Or what? The judge. He'd been there before. Said he wanted to see her one last time, clear things up. He left about an hour before I got there. Ezra frowned. That was new information. You're saying that Judge Tambo met with Nzinga that night? Yes. He called me, said she was furious that things had gone wrong, asked me to talk to her, calm her down, gave me money to give her. Ezra exchanged glances with the prosecutor. If that was true, the case was taking a new turn. Go on. What happened after you realized she was dead? I panicked. I tried to cover my tracks, wiped down every surface I touched. Then I realized I had to create a different crime scene so the police would look in the wrong place. Ia moved the body, staged the attack. And the sexual assault? No, I just moved the body and tried to make it look like a random mugger or rapist. But I didn't do anything to her. Ezra turned off the recorder. He had a confession to the murder, albeit a caveat. Leon was taken to his cell, and the detective went to the lieutenant with the report. He confessed, but he claims that Judge Tambo was there that night too, Ezra reported, and that the marks of sexual assault may have been left by the judge. Do you believe him? Ezra thought for a moment. Partially. His account of motive sounds plausible. He was clearly obsessed with the judge, perhaps even in love with him, judging by the photos he'd secretly taken. When Nzinga threatened to ruin the judge's life, Leon decided to intervene. And the judge himself? We need to talk to him again, now with concrete evidence and Leon's testimony. However, the meeting with Judge Tambo did not take place. When Ezra arrived at the courthouse, it was chaotic. As it turned out, in the morning Judge Tambo resigned for personal reasons and left the building, refusing to comment. By late afternoon, news of the scandal had already leaked to the press. Headlines screamed about the respected judge's liaison with a dancer, HIV, murder, and resignation. Pearson Tambo's life was crumbling before the public eye, exactly as he feared. The results of the DNA test came back the next day. There was indeed Leon Mwangi's skin under Nzinga's fingernails, confirming his direct involvement in the murder. But there was a second result. Judge Tambo's DNA was found in the samples taken from the victim's body. Ezra visited the judge at his home, a luxurious mansion on the outskirts of the city. Pearson Tambo looked 10 years older, his hands shaking slightly as he poured himself a whiskey. I didn't kill her, he said without waiting for a question. But I am responsible for her death. Tell me what happened. I loved her. Really loved her, despite the difference in age and status. When she told me she was HIV positive, I was shocked. But I didn't blame her. We were both careless. That night, I went to her place to talk it over. She was desperate, afraid I would leave her. It was the last time we were close for the last time. I didn't know it would be the last time. Did she threaten to tell your wife? The judge shook his head. No, that's Leon's imagination. Nzinga never blackmailed me. She wanted to end our relationship. She felt guilty that she might have infected me. The money was for her treatment and to move to another city to start a new life. Why didn't you tell me this before? Fear, detective. Basic fear of losing everything. Now I've lost everything anyway. Leon Mwangi was formally charged a week later with second-degree murder. Evidence of premeditated murder was lacking, but the accident theory didn't hold up as well. Judge Tambo was not charged with direct involvement in Nzinga's death, but his reputation was ruined. The HIV test did indeed come back positive. A month later, Ezra sat on a park bench looking at the sunset. Nzinga Odom's case was closed and the killer had been found, but the detective felt no satisfaction. Too many lives had been ruined, all because of fear, secrets, and silence. Ezra remembered the words of his first mentor on the force. Behind every crime is a story that began long before it. The story of Nzinga, Judge Tambo, and Leon Mwangi began with a desire to be loved and recognized and ended in tragedy. Ezra wondered, how many more stories like this lurked behind the facades of ordinary houses, behind the smiles of ordinary people? And how many of them would end just as sadly if the truth was not told in time? He got up from the bench and headed home. Tomorrow would be a new case, new mysteries, new stories. That's the job of a detective, to pick up the pieces of other people's lives, trying to piece together a picture of the truth. Sometimes this picture turns out to be too dark, but without it, it is impossible to restore justice.